Grace had this incredible, elaborate, intense set of connections. Every single person you meet thinks that Grace is their best friend.
She became a doctor just as AIDS hit San Francisco, so what a time for somebody with Grace's qualities to be there.
I mean, Grace was one of the founders of the AIDS ward at Laguna Honda Hospital, the skilled nursing facility for poor people in San Francisco.
We are so pleased to honor Grace Dammann for her pioneering work caring for individuals living with and dying from AIDS. With her gentle spirit, humility, and quiet devotion, she has provided compassionate care to thousands of people in crisis. Thank you, Grace.
It's happened again late this afternoon, another head-on crash on the Golden Gate Bridge. It was a massive collision with devastating consequences.
The 60-year-old woman driving suffered major injuries and is in critical condition and may not make it.
I get a phone call that there's been an accident. I mean, this one was like an atomic bomb.
There was this whole conversation about whether or not to put a do not resuscitate order on her because they had found the brain bleeds at that point.
The surgeon had written everything he'd done to Grace. All the internal organs were up in her left lung. They reinflated the lung, repaired the diaphragm rupture, and replaced her organs.
I assumed she was dead. But Nan said, no, she's gonna live.
Peter, it's Fu calling. Grace is awake. I mean, really awake. She's talking. She's asking questions. She wants to know what happened to her. She's smiling. She sang, "You Are My Sunshine," 2 verses. I'm serious. It's just a miracle.
I just never had someone have so many surgeries on so many joints of their body and so many bones broken. Nice. In Grace's case, there was nothing by the books. There's no PT book that was going to explain how to teach her to walk, and nothing seems to stop her.
This is the only time I have for rehab, and that's going to determine what I can do in the future. I love being a doctor, but I've got some work to do before I could go back to take care of more people. Grace is back, and she's not the same Grace that left home that day. She's finding out who she is that's back. Not the same Grace that she knew either.
Who am I really now? Who do I want to be now?
How I will negotiate a new body and a new way of being. Those are 2 huge things to negotiate.
I learned that nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts for very long at all, including great pain, great sorrow, great helplessness. Nothing lasts forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Grace Dammann.
When Amanda asked me to speak tonight, I thought, what do I have to offer given how immobilized I am when the topic is action? Because of old age, sickness, and death, however, and they're not being optional, changing abilities will act for all of you to be an issue for all of you. Having spent most of my life in a very near constant motion only to be abruptly stopped, I figured I had something to offer in the way of advice to you all. These lessons are going to sound quite familiar to those among you who are parents and educators, but basically, I've got 4 points that I feel are important. Number 1, slow down. Number 2, listen. Number 3, learn. And number 4, practice. The definition of action relates the process of doing something to having a particular aim in mind or intention. I had the life goal of learning to surf, which I finally got around to doing when I was 50 on my 50th birthday, and loved it. I loved surfing. I also entered medical school very late in age, but that was also one of my lifetime goals. Fortunately, I found that profession and avocation which bound my endless energy in a productive way. My intention has always been quite clear, and it's been a desire to serve, combined with the fact that I'm greedy and I don't want to miss anything. Fortunately, I had the good opportunity to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama sometime right before the accident. And I must say, watching him closely for a week, I was so impressed by his zeal, his humanness, his love of life in the face of absolute adversity, and his willingness to live with compassion for all people. I thought the human race really does have possibilities. We really might be able to do this thing together. If only all of us could start practicing. What, you might ask, is practice? Practice means to look at the contents of your mind and try to change those contents in a way so that they don't spill out on everybody around you. Good luck to all of us. The only time I was quiet, reflective, and not in motion was in the Zendo, which is the place where we meditate at Green Gulch Farm. It's not as if I was new to Buddhism, but as my daughter says, "Mom, you were a terrible Buddhist." Thank God I spent some time there in the Zendo before the accident, because I really did learn much of what I needed to know to get myself through the experiences that were going to come. By meditating, you learn very quickly that pain, pleasure, joy, and sorrow come and go, often in overwhelming waves. Nothing's changing, nothing at all, except what's going on inside of your mind. You're sitting on the same place, on the same cushion, beside the same person who's probably still sniffling. But these waves come from inside, overwhelming you. Everything, every thought, every feeling lasts for only a moment. These moments can be exquisitely joyful, exquisitely beautiful, painful as hell, or you fill in the blank, but they are all just that, moments. Suzuki Roshi, my root teacher, described enlightenment as being the process of proceeding into the next moment, moment by moment. Much of my learning to deal with my disabilities has to do with allowing space for my intention to surface and refine itself. How, you might ask, is that going? Good question. Let's look at my involvement with the pain clinic at Laguna Honda Hospital. About 2 years after the accident, I developed this intense longing to figure out whether I could go back and practice medicine. So anyway, I met with the medical leadership at Laguna Honda, and they had the gall to ask me whether I would consider opening a pain clinic for people with chronic pain. I thought, you've got to be kidding. After what I've been through in the last 2 years, you have just got to be kidding. I've got an aversion to pain. I can't stand pain. I hate the idea of pain. Pain is horrible. Western medicine has nothing good to do for pain. But instead of speaking, I took a deep breath because I had finally learned one thing, which was to sit still long enough to let my Buddhist practice bubble up. And also my mother's words. My mother had always counseled me, never make a decision on anything but a good night's sleep. So I said, can I get back to you in the morning? fully expecting, of course, that the morning would bring nothing new in terms of my feelings. But I won't go through the long process. Suffice it to say that morning came and I called them up and I said, yes. Yes. Now, just saying yes doesn't mean loving it. For some reason, I just said yes. I won't go through the process again of how long it took before I realized that I was loving my job, that all of us, patients and staff alike, were having the times of our lives. But I will give you one day's event, and that is one day we practiced laughing yoga. Staff and clients in the wellness group together decided or committed themselves to breaking out in uproarious laughter somewhere in the hospital for some unknown reason. For example, in an elevator, without explaining anything and just noting the reaction. Of course, we were all scared to death. We didn't want to go on stage in that way, and I especially tried to weasel out of it, saying I have to chair an ethics committee meeting. This is not appropriate. But nobody would let me out of it, so I went on. And when we got back at the end of the day to debrief, we were laughing so hysterically we couldn't go on with the meeting, and this was about pain. And then there's learning. Remember, I've got 4 things that I wanted to talk about. Learning is the third. I would like to share with you a koan that I've been practicing with. Now, koan literature is a way of trying to understand reality. Often it's a dialogue between student and teacher. We won't go through that. But this particular koan speaks to my experience as a doctor, a patient, and mostly as a student of life. It's called Master Ma Was Unwell. It's for those of you who are interested, case 36 in the Book of Serenity. Master Ma was unwell. The monastery superintendent asked, "Master, how is your health these days?" The great teacher replied, "Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha." Now it helps to know 2 things to make some sense of this koan. The first is that Master Ma was a revered Zen teacher. He was also very strong. He was said to have the gait of a bull and the piercing gaze of a tiger. Finally, he had 130 heirs that he had given his stamp of approval. They were legitimate teachers. That's kind of like being a single parent to 300 children in terms of the energy that it takes to raise them successfully, which is not possible. The second item it helps to know is that in the sutras, page after page is devoted to listing the names of Buddha. And at one point, sun-faced Buddha is described as the Buddha who lived 1,800 years, and moon-faced Buddha is described as the Buddha who lived for only a day and a night. How does this relate to any of us? We are all both sun-faced and moon-faced and live through moments that are sun-faced and moon-faced. If we can embrace our moon-facedness when we are, then we are living and practicing moment to moment, acting as we were meant to as adult human beings, according to this koan. It allows us, as it did Master Ma when he's facing death, to be both sun-faced Buddha and moon-faced Buddha with equanimity. How, you might ask, has this helped me? I drive across the Golden Gate Bridge, get hit, luckily, and spend the next month in a coma, thank God, moon face. And I can't put my stethoscope in my ears still. I can't surf, and I can't walk without the walker. Again, moon face. But I have learned one important lesson in my life, which I'll get to next. I am here today with you because nobody in that first month in particular made a predictable, serious error. My will to live was incredible. I was supported by a huge invisible and visible community of support. I'm here today, sun-faced. The lesson I learned is this: I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change what is. That doesn't mean I wouldn't rather walk, of course I would. But it does mean what is, and that means not walking without a walker, is much richer than anything I could have imagined, ordered at Pete's, or even, I expect, the French Laundry. What is so much fuller than the reality created by my mind, which had me thinking, I'm out of here with if anybody needs to wipe my butt, if. The absolute wonder of that first shower, 4 months after the accident. My wrinkles got better the whole time I was in a coma. The impact of my willingness to laugh uproariously while chairing an ethics committee meeting in the hospital, that was nothing short of miraculous. I'm learning about the contents of my mind and hopefully doing something to make them less toxic in terms of their impact on others. We have come together tonight to raise money so that young girls who might not otherwise have the experience of receiving a superlative education will now do it. And I'm so grateful to be here for exactly that reason. How is your health, Sun-Faced Buddha? Thank you.